right, happy Monday. You can trust that day. I don't know if you can trust Mother Nature. She changes her mind a lot. But that's okay. I mean, we live in southwestern Ontario. That's where we live, right? Welcome to the show, everybody. Episode 593. Yep, keep going around here. Thanks to all of you for watching. And you might have noticed a little bit of change in format here on the show, just to give you an update. So I like doing these one-to-one interviews with people in our community, and not always just talking about what they do, but we talk about them, right? One-on-one and kind of intimate conversations. And I hope you're enjoying those. So I've changed that up for a reason. There's some more things coming down the pipeline in the future. That's all I'll tell you for now. You know me, I'm always teasing you with something, right? But I'm really enjoying them. So what's going to happen is I'll keep doing these one-to-one interviews. And then as far as the local and the organizational things that I talk about here, like Rebound and United Way and all that, we'll still have them, but we'll just have separate videos for that for you to enjoy. So you're going to see a lot more content showing up regularly on the Show with David Burrows page. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that there as well. If you're watching on YouTube, please take a moment and subscribe to the channel and, click that little bell icon so you get notified. If you're watching here on Facebook, just like and share. Share button's the most important button of everything out there, so we can share the messages of the people that I talk to. All right, we're going to get into it in just a moment, but I do want to give a shout out to Sarnia Sings. Happy to be a part of that again. Tickets went on sale a couple of weeks ago, and they're already flying out like hotcakes. And there's still some left, but we want to get this sold out. It's always sold out in the past, so it likely will. April 20th is the date. About 18 singers going to be showing up, from very young to older. All ages going to be in this. And of course, this is supporting mental health awareness and suicide prevention here in our community, all put on by our friend Adam Dumont. So just go to imperialtheater.net to get those tickets. I will give a mention as well to the Sarnia Sting. Of course, Sarnia Sting, 7 wins in a row now. This has been an amazing team and quite a journey from the start to where we are now. They had a lot of struggles in the beginning, but they've clinched a playoff position, and they're still looking very, very strong. They won 6-3 on Friday over the Sioux, and then I guess they like 6-3 this past Sunday, 6-3 over the Kitchener Rangers. So next game coming up on Wednesday, we'll be there live from the concourse as well. And now my friend Connor Burke will be joining me for my co-host. Yes, my co-host for Wednesday. So look out for that. We're going to have a lot of fun there. And of course, before we get started, always got to say thank you to my supporters here. Blue Water Power, a group of companies coming on board to support us here. Thank you, Blue Water Power. Joe's Discount Tire, the seasons keep changing around here. Make sure you got the right tires on. And of course, 11.5 years from our friend Guy at AG Event Graphics. Visit them online at askguy.ca. So please go online and visit all of our sponsors so you know what they're about, and maybe you can support them locally as well. All right. Well, I'm excited for this. I'm excited for all of the interviews I've been doing, but I really, this is a busy guy we're going to be talking to here, and he was able to give me some of his time. Adam Kilner, who is known for being a minister in the community and, of course, a new council member here in Sarnia. But he does a lot of different things, and we paid him a visit, and this is what turned out. We had a really great one-on-one conversation, some laughs, and we talked a little bit of serious stuff too. But, well, here it is. Take a look. Here's Adam Kilner. It's nice to, I know I've been saying it every week, folks, but it's really true. I just love really getting out one-on-one and having these conversations with people in our community. Today we're at Dunlop United Church with our friend Adam Kilner. Thanks for being here, Adam.
Thank you.
Actually, thanks
Dunlop
for
Central.
Or Dunlop Central. What did I say? United, yes, Central. And this is a nice space that we're sitting in. It's pretty welcoming, actually. When I came in the door, there was a gentleman out there, and you could hear the ladies in the kitchen chatting away. It's very welcoming to come in here, and a nice lobby there. And
I didn't even know they were going to be here.
Yeah, so. There you go, right? Let's, boy, we've got a lot to talk about with you here, Adam. You've done so much to this point in your life, and but let's take people back to how you first got to Sarnia and what brought you here.
I was adopted here.
Yeah.
I was fostered, born in Windsor, fostered by a lady named Irma Vinson, who fostered something like 250 plus kids in Windsor, Detroit. I was the last infant that she fostered in the 80s. And back in the day, adoption was a lot different than it is today.
Oh, how so?
And so after my parents had a number of kids, I think they were on the Santa's nice list.
Right.
So they just kept getting more and more every time they said, oh yeah, we'll take some more in. So like literally the day that Children's Aid in Windsor had me ready to go, they called up my dad, who worked at St. Clair School, and oh, we got this kid. Called him in the morning. He goes up to the principal. I think it may have been Ruth Illman, the principal that a lot of people know, and he just said, yeah, I got to leave. And he went to Windsor with Mom, and that kind of was history. And then I was here. I would have been about 20 months old when that happened. So the lady who fostered me, Irma, she was married to 2 ministers. The second one was Reverend Adam Vincent. And at that time, my name was actually Jimmy.
Oh, okay.
So when they adopted me here, Judge Kent, I think it was, can't remember his first name, but they renamed me Adam after Reverend Adam Vincent.
Oh, okay.
And so I do look back at becoming a minister and thinking, I don't think I would have expected that growing up.
Right. And a lot of people knew your dad, right? You know, and tell everybody who it is.
Yeah, Earl, unfortunately, he passed last August, but he taught at St. Clair for about 35, 36 years.
Taught my sister, taught me, had a lot to do with a lot of people.
Yeah, he was there for eons. He was also at Northern and Skits, I think, but just for like 1 year stints in the early 60s.
Right.
Like I went, Dad ended up with dementia, and he was very forthright about it. Really helped us talk about it because we've got a big family, and sometimes you go to the I had times going to the superstore, and I heard this about your dad, and sometimes I'd be there like, I haven't even heard that.
Right. So you got to learn a lot while you're walking around and talking to people.
Yeah.
What was that like growing up in your home with the family?
It was. I mean, there's so many things. Like we were a family in the 80s who was like composting. Dad was, it was a one family income, which I'm not even sure you could do today with that many kids.
No.
Just given.
I don't know how they did it then, to be honest.
Yeah. And we had a dryer, but he would regularly throughout all times of the year, he would hang our clothes out to dry, winter, summer, spring, fall. And he had a coupon wallet that was double the size of his regular wallet back when physical coupons were a thing. And so it was just, we took class trips in the 80s from Lake Road School, which was, you could walk in 5 minutes to our backyard where we, just so people could see, they've got 5 compost heaps. And the kids rotate them around. And it's not that we love doing it. It was because it's, what kid likes to do work around the house, right?
Yeah.
But I look back and I just think, like all of these kinds of environmental things that I was involved in, they were just out of necessity for keeping costs low in our house and all that kind of stuff. So it was just, I don't know. I don't know anything other than that.
Yeah, right.
I mean, but the one thing I do know is that mostly everybody else I know, friends, family, and so on, did not have my experience growing up.
Yeah. Wow, what a neat experience,
Yeah.
too. Kind of ahead of everything in a sense of, like you say, back in the 80s, who composted, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's cool. Well, now, you're something I learned about you recently that I really didn't know until I started creeping your Facebook page to get ready for today is you're a musician as well.
Yeah, I put out an album in 2020, a solo album, and then joined a rock band called Rocky Rivers and Company with Rodney Medwid and Tim Anderson.
Oh, is that right?
And,
wow.
And who else is in there? Chris Molyneux.
Yeah.
Great guy. yeah, there's a number of us. I'm sure I'm, having a brain
that's okay.
stop
That's
because, but yeah, we just started in last May, and our first gig was opening for the Trews.
Yeah, how cool is that, right? You were tinkling the ivories here just before we got started. Some Elton John. You're a big fan of Elton John, are you? Or was that?
Oh yeah, my teenage years were sitting in my brother's basement over on Rosedale Ave, listening to his wife's. She had this big collection of. It was called Elton John to Be Continued.
Oh.
And it was just basically every major song he had, which had to be at least 100.
At least.
Up until I think the early to mid 90s.
Yeah.
Because even some of his stuff like, I Believe in Love, It's All We Got, that was on there as well.
Right.
But it was before he put out Candle in the Wind and like the new version of Candle in the Wind. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's actually how I learned how to play the piano. I got kicked out of piano lessons as a kid because I was an ADHD kid, obnoxious, lots of energy, and the teacher at that point was probably well up in her 70s, and so she kept teaching my sisters. I got kicked out, but I joined rock bands when I was about 18, 19 years old as the singer, and had been taught by like Blake Stevenson and David Nichols and David Parks over at Northern. Learned a lot of theory, and after that I thought, I should learn an instrument. So I went, I had played the clarinet and saxophone up until that point, but knowing the theory, it just got me the ability to learn how to create chords on a piano and then learn how to play by ear.
Yeah. Have you written some of your own music?
Yeah, so I sold at the Bookkeeper an album in 2020. It was called Freedom Tapestry, and the painting is almost, the album cover is almost better than the actual record. It was painted by Elise McDonald, and I actually have the original sitting in my office just down the hall of the album cover. But yeah, we released that in 2020, and it was just absolutely fun. Already, we've already gotten a whole bunch of songs written for another one.
Right.
So we're working on that.
Where did you record it at?
With Adam Miner here in Sarnia. He was over on Cromwell at the time. Well, actually, it was while he was moving from that studio he had right beside where Vic's Corner Deli is.
Yeah, on Christina Street.
And then he moved just down the street on Cromwell to a house. So we were kind of at both places at one point, and now he's in a different location. But
he's a master at his craft, though.
He is. He spent a lot of time going to different bars, playing. I don't think he's done that in a few years, but yeah.
Very talented man.
Very talented, yes.
Yeah, you're lucky to have him help you with that. You look back to your family life when you were younger, and then getting into music and getting kicked out of piano lessons. I think that's funny. Who gets kicked out of piano lessons, right? You get kicked out of school, but and to now we're sitting here today with a multitude of things that you do, obviously here at the church, but and now in politics. And I've been watching from afar, before you became a city councillor, and I'm like, oh, okay, and kind of monitoring, where's this guy going to go, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And monitoring in a positive way. I was very. You have a really intriguing personality. Like you attract. I was attracted to you and your personality, and the way you approach things. I find. My question though is, when did you really decide I want to get in politics? Because wow, that's a rocky world. Like, who wants to do that? I don't know. So
that is a really great question, because the answer really is not that I was seeking out politics. It was more of I knocked on doors for Kathy Alexander's provincial campaign. What year was that? 2018, I think.
I remember that.
And I was not a critical part of that campaign. Like I was there kind of on the periphery knocking on doors. And I knocked on doors around the city of Sarnia, out in Corunna, and had a lot of really interesting conversations. But 6, 7, 8 months later, I get a call from or a message from the president and vice president of the local NDP riding association for coffee. I go, and I'm completely oblivious to what I just thought. Oh, we're going to go in this and talk about how do we improve their chances and so on and so forth. And just before we're leaving, we actually gathered you for coffee because we think you should run in the next federal election. And I'm sitting there like, huh?
Who, me?
What?
Right.
And you better give me a few weeks to think about this. I tried to push it off for about 6, 7 weeks, something like that, and I just kept thinking, this is not a good idea professionally. This is bad.
What am I getting into?
We all know how politics can be,
right?
And we see a lot of the divisiveness that goes on, and so anyway. After 5 or 6 weeks, I think it was early May of 2019, I ran into the president over at Refined Fool downtown, and I think it was in a moment of weakness or something. I don't know.
Well, okay. Well, that's an honest answer.
No shit. Like I just said, yep, I'll do it. And we ran based on just trying to rebuild our volunteer base. We ran trying to have a positive campaign. We ran knowing what our odds were. We didn't go in that without any form of so I'm like, that just kind of started the process. Next thing you know, everybody seems to know who you are, and you don't always know who everybody else is.
Well, I hear you.
and then it was just from there, it just got to that point of, after running once, thinking, well, once you're in it, it's kind of in your blood.
Is it? Yeah.
I think so.
What do you think it was? And I'm sure maybe they must have told you, you must have said, why me? What was the reason for, it's one thing for a person, I think, to wake up and go, I'm deciding I want to get involved in politics, I'm going to run for whatever. But when somebody comes to you and says, we'd really like you, what was it they told you what did they see in you that they wanted?
Well, they liked my passion. They liked that they think I'm friendly.
So far, I agree. Yeah. I haven't seen the other side yet.
Yeah, I think they knew that I wasn't quite well known at that point, but they did go in with believing that you can build on that.
Right.
And obviously with the municipal election, that seems to have been proven in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
This was definitely not a journey I ever expected to be on. I mean, I was always interested in politics, but I was never.
You weren't running for
I wasn't ever expecting to put myself out there.
Yeah.
So it certainly has been a strange journey, but kind of once you get into it, it just ended up being like thinking about my colleague Sherry DeNovo in Toronto. I lived in her riding. She was the minister over at Emmanuel Howard Park United Church, which is now called Roncesvalles United Church. But she just kept talking about the stuff that she was doing in the church, and how becoming an MPP was a bigger platform to invite the public into stuff that she was already trying to accomplish.
Right.
And the way John Wesley would put it, the founder of Methodism, he was an Anglican priest, but the way he put it was, the whole world is my parish.
Interesting.
And so in some ways that's a reference to I care for all the people connected to this church, whether you're a member or not. Like, there's all sorts of groups, Cub Scouts, guides, Tai Chi, and so on and so forth. Anything that has happened around here in terms of some of the homophobic materials we've had posted on the doors, those are moments where I have to reflect and say, okay, this person is doing this in direct response to something I've done. But anybody who uses this building, I now have to do that other reflection of I still have to care for anybody accessing this building, and that's a liability issue, right? And so you do kind of have to go through what effect your work is having on the public, what it's having on people who are here, and kind of how you move forward. And I've been so lucky in this congregation for them to just say, no, you just keep doing you. They have supported it in every way, shape, or form, including when it's cost them lots of money to, they did end up putting security cameras around the building because of some of these incidents, I guess I should call them, and $12,000.
And how recent was these actions?
They would have been in the 2021 federal election. But like, we're also lucky that we've got neighbors who aren't necessarily part of the church who keep an eye on what's going on around here.
But they're part of the neighborhood, right? Yeah.
They are part of the neighborhood, and they have great respect for us. So a lady across the street, when some of these things got posted, she goes out, walks the dog, and, oh, this doesn't look like it should be here. So she sends me an email, and as soon as I get it, I come here and, oh, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. So I just called the police.
Yeah. Do you think, I guess we're talking politics a little bit here. Would you agree that we've really become are we a divided community?
You know what? I don't you go on social media, we all believe that, and that's because one of the things that's changed my mind on a lot of this is taking a course on emotional intelligence, and
I was just reading a book about it.
Yeah, about the language we use.
It's really incredible.
Yeah,
everybody should honestly look into that, in my opinion.
On social media, everybody uses escalatory language about the issues, and obviously we all have strong reactions to whatever we read. Sure. But I just know I go into different spaces and talk to people who don't see the world the way I do, and people try to ask me hot button questions and all that kind of stuff, and I just keep sitting back there thinking, how do we have a conversation?
Yeah. And
because that's the most important thing. I need to be able to hear what you're trying to get across, but conversations are difficult. If you actually care about somebody else's perspective,
Absolutely.
You have to invest. There are ways of operating in the world where you can shut down other people and say, I don't care about what you say, so, go away. But one of the things I think that's really peculiar about, like, democracy, for example, is it takes a lot of work.
Well, effort, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of like a marriage. Like, there's always going to be conflict and difference of how-tos, especially when children are involved.
Yeah.
Like, you were raised one way and your partner was raised the other way, so then we argue, and we have to find those grounds to meet at. Like, sometimes I forget who said it. I heard it not too long ago. It's like, you can have a conversation with somebody, but if they're not really willing to listen, you need to walk away.
Yeah,
it has to be a conversation.
Yeah,
and I think that's probably, like, everybody's a journalist now, Adam. I think because they can go on social media and type it out, right? And you've probably heard too, that Facebook's a terrible thing. It's not Facebook that's the problem. It's the ones that are on the keyboard, right? When I see people swearing 4-letter words, I'm like, it's one thing to have a conversation and something slip out, but you actually had 5 chances to not, like, 1, 2, 3, 4 letters, and then you had to hit the enter key.
Yeah. Yep.
So I guess the mindset is what I'm talking about, right? Are we making any progress with getting along?
Well, I think the bigger issue, Dave, is really, it's not so much social media, it's social media plus pandemic, where we're all, like...
A lot of true colors came out in people, right?
True colors came out, but it's also a piece about isolation. In ministry, we have had reports for decades on how United Church ministers have felt more and more isolated. when people are more isolated, they're less, like you and I interact over Facebook. It's very different than you and I talking in person.
Absolutely.
You get a warm body across, I see how you're reacting to things. I'm going to temper any controversial things or anything that I might think
there's
is
no
escalatory.
tone of voice on social media.
Yeah, well, and there's also, like, it's also impersonal in the sense that I'm not getting your direct interaction. I don't know your tone of voice. I don't know what your facial expressions are. So
that's why I don't like to play poker online.
So I honestly think the biggest thing, like being on a university board in the Toronto area, we've had administrators tell us, like, kids coming into university this past fall, like, coming up to administrators, well, we don't actually know how we're supposed to interact with you because we've never interacted with anybody for the last 3 years that weren't our parents or grandparents. And so I just think that the isolation likely has a huge impact on kind of the limitations we're willing to put on ourselves when we interact online. So I just think the antidote is don't lose our community spaces. We're having conversations right now about how do we what do we do with church spaces that are closing? Because we know religion is very different than it was even 10, 15 years ago. Yeah. And especially like 40 years ago. It's dramatically different.
Are shrinking, right?
But these have historically been public spaces, so can we transition them into something that will continue to create gathering space for our wider community? I think those kinds of things, like we see it at Mods and the Refined Fool and stuff, like, local places that people can interact and stay connected to each other. I think that's the big, that's probably the big antidote, if there is any.
Right.
Meet people online that you've had a disagreement with on Facebook.
Yeah. But that being said, I mean, the next generation coming, my son, for example, he's going to be 23. They date on the phone. They and I mean, and the pandemic forced us to live stream everything. Right?
It was weird.
I was live streaming funerals in the pandemic, and that generation kind of accepts it. Even like going to the bank, they don't want to go talk to anybody. They just want to go online and apply for their mortgage, and so that's going to be a problem.
It's we open Pandora's box in some way.
Right.
It will never be able to, we'll never be able to close it.
Yeah.
That will always have an impact, but I think it's also important to remember that, we still have the opportunity to meet in person.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but I know I immediately, overnight, transitioned from talking to an audience to talking to a wall.
I taught online, and there was no room noise.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear the air conditioner or the heat or the fan or whatever. And it was, I thought it was going to be difficult for the students. And I'm someone who's online all the time doing that. And I was like, are you even there? Are you listening? Hello? Exactly. I wanted to come through the camera and go, hi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it had its own emotional toll on us.
Totally.
Like, I know, I came into ministry to help actual, physical people.
Yeah.
And then you're in here talking to a wall trying to help people, but it just felt so weird.
Try to engage in chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, coming out of the pandemic, I just feel worn out by, I say to people, oh yeah, I like to post on social media, but I don't anymore really like responding to comments anymore. It just feels emotionally taxing.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm against it. It's just 3 years of this has just...
It takes time, too. Trust me, I'm always on doing my thing, and I have to go, I got to go to LinkedIn, and I got to go to Facebook, and oh, crap, I forgot Twitter, and it's work, and I can certainly see where that would be exhausting, especially, in what you're doing there. You're trying to help people, save people, however you want to put it together. But you've been able to come through that. And now you're city councillor, and how's that going?
That's a good.
Well, I said I wasn't going to trip you up or trick you, but I mean, really, that's how's it going? Like,
I should have expected that question.
well, you know,
No, I'm kidding. It's you know what? It's like a workplace where just everybody is, everybody is who everybody is,
Yeah.
and I just found it really exciting and inspiring to be able to just call up any counselor and say, this is what I'm reading, but I don't know if I necessarily understand it the way it's supposed to be understood. I can talk to any one of those, and they'll pick up the phone, and we'll chat for eons about what our options are for this or that different issue. The camaraderie has been outstanding, and like this goes back to the previous comment. Like, well, you shouldn't be able to get along with that person because you guys have
I
different.
kind of asked that for a reason. That's what I
Yeah.
was saying. Like, talk about having to get along and work with others that you are definitely going to have difference of opinions on.
Yeah, like it's just again, like my mode of operation is always try to come from a place of empathy. That doesn't mean you have to agree with anybody or anything. It just means that you're trying to do the work to hear somebody else's opinion, to understand their worldview. And when you can do that, and I don't think that that's a huge task. Mm-hmm. I think it's just it's something, if you're really out to help people, you have to understand that not everybody who comes to the table sees the world the way you do. And if you don't do that work, what you're doing is just encouraging, people to remain in conflict, I think. Because then you're like, if I don't spend my time listening to what your opinion is, Dave, like that's a fundamental, primordial human piece, right?
Yeah.
Which is to be acknowledged.
100%.
And, we've got all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds and worldviews here in this church, and there are some places where we do have to agree. Like, how are we going to treat each other in this organization?
Yeah.
That's a fundamental thing that we kind of all have to be at least playing the same sport on.
Yeah.
But on a variety of other items. Oh, what should we do with kids programs? You're allowed to disagree to, till the cows come
And
home.
we should disagree.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like my favorite color, if everybody's color was blue, like, what would that look like?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like everything that I have seen in the last few months, like even our anti-racism discussion, there were a few phone calls. Well, what are you really trying to do at this? Actually, we're just here trying to create a structure for people to tell us what's going on, what's going well for them in Sarnia, what challenges they face, and how we as a community can work together to make sure everybody kind of has access to the same playing field.
Yeah.
And it was a very inspiring event. Like I said at the beginning, my background is a minister, so we always start off with the blues, then we transition a little bit into jazz, and then we rise up into gospel.
Right.
And our point is always to empower people.
I like that.
And empowerment isn't about, what I think people should be doing. Yeah. It's about equipping people to do what
they want to do.
To do.
Yeah.
And, that's a little different when you get into governance, because you're trying to do that, but you're also trying to empower from a team perspective.
Yeah.
So,
I like how you said in there too, Adam, that how we as a community, that word community, and that's an important word. I think a lot of people say it, but I'm not sure that they really understand what that means, because I think a lot of times we go, well, the government should do this, the government should do that, the government, whoa. And I always kind of go back to the JFK thing, ask not, right? What you, and we can't put it all on our government. I think it's called government for a reason, but is this community coming more together, like after all the pandemic and everything? We were all really clearly divided on our beliefs, vax or not to vax, all that stuff. Are we growing in that direction? Are we headed in a positive way here in our community?
I think so. I think we are. I think there are people who have, like there are people around who, like the anti-vax stuff, was definitely at the forefront.
For sure.
And I know for myself, I never said anything about any of that, other than I went and worked in the clinics.
Right.
And we have to understand that, in anything that we do, there's always going to be people who say, that's not for me. It's not our job to, it's not really our job to kind of micromanage what people do with their bodies.
Right.
Even in the midst of the pandemic, like I personally, like I'm a person who, kind of went into that conversation saying like, okay, we should do everything that we can to promote this. But obviously when you're promoting, there's always going to be people that say that's not for me. Mm-hmm. But coming out of the pandemic, I think that we have a lot of people who are just hungry for connection. And this is everything, like all the conversations I've been involved in have especially revolved around the housing crisis, but also crises around losing public space. And I think those are critical conversations because having a guaranteed roof over your head means you don't spend all of your time wondering, where am I going to be tonight?
Right.
Which itself, I'm pretty certain, has impacts on people's mental health.
Definitely.
As well as a variety of a variety of other social concerns. I think public space is absolutely necessary because it keeps people interacting who wouldn't necessarily normally have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So.
And we're seeing, there's a couple of spaces downtown that I see popping up that are helping with that. But I gotta, it's certainly concerning. And if there's some people that don't, to say homelessness in Sarnia. I've lived here all my life, born and raised.
Yeah.
And I remember, riding my bike around in the 80s when I was in high school, and everything was just, it's Sarnia. Nothing happens in Sarnia. Boy, does it ever. And, you drive around now and we see little tent cities popping up.
Yep.
There were some spaces down in the south end, like off Confed there, where it was happening. And, it's really out there. And it used to be, maybe we didn't see it because it was couch surfing for the young kids.
Yep.
But now, where did this come from? Because it was pre-pandemic even, right?
It was, I think we were, it wasn't really I really think, there were a number of us already sounding alarms in 2019, for example.
Yeah.
But even then, I know for myself, I wasn't expecting things to take the critical and dynamic shift that it did, especially in
I think most didn't.
the spring of 2021, because it went from, it almost overnight went from, okay, we know this is a problem and always has been, and things are not going to get necessarily better without some policy and some access to grants and shovels to get that ground working, but or ground turned up for building. But I just know it was sometime in the spring of 2021, and I just remember that because I bought the townhouse I was living in.
Oh, yeah.
And got a really great interest rate. And then I just remember the day I signed the mortgage, I looked across the parking lot. I live in a townhouse. I look across the parking lot, and some place is going for tens of thousands of dollars more than I paid. And next thing I know, interest rates are going up, and
Right.
housing prices are, in some cases, even doubling.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, I'm talking with some friends in the legal community, friends who are concerned about our city, who are going around and finding all of these different encampments in different areas of our city. And We've kind of been that way ever since. If you've listened to Miles Vanny talk about the amount that the Inn of the Good Shepherd has spent, prior to the pandemic, it was something like $5,000 a month to help feed people. Now it's something like $25,000 a month.
He taught me, I've interviewed him many times, and he always taught me, imagine a 20 by 40 swimming pool, and you have to fill that every month with food. But now you need 2 20 by 40 swimming pools. Right? That's a lot of food.
That's
right?
a lot of food.
And that's just food. We're not even talking about things like diapers and tampons and all that stuff. That stuff's really expensive. And now our food's going like, prices, we could talk about that forever too, but prices go up. They typically don't go down. Gas is never going back to 50 cents a liter.
That's right.
Can of pop's never going to be 50 cents again. So, we got a lot of catching up to do to relax people, right? But I think you're right. I think having these open spaces like churches, or just like even like a mods, or like the Mitten Village area did a nice job in that parking lot in there. River City Vineyard.
Yep.
Love River City Vineyard for what they've done, working so hard to raise money and take care of that there. But
and they're working hard to even expand.
Yes. And they were ones that really recognized it. Like, they really saw this coming, didn't they?
Oh, they did. And like, here's the thing. We need both shelters and we need medium or high density housing. Like I am pretty certain that some of these larger homes are not going to be an adequate response to the number of people that we're seeing unhoused. And I do also know that, like, I come across people from middle incomes, people I grew up with. Oh, I'd love to move to Sarnia, I just can't afford it.
So how are you living in Toronto?
Exactly.
Exactly.
I don't get that. It's I think it's people who are trying to purchase a house rather than rent. But
that's
rent is so high in these other cities that you can't save money for a down payment, even to move to Sarnia. And I think that's probably what the issue actually is. It took me a decade to save up some money.
Hey, I tell my son, I say, you can stay here for a while, but pack all your money away, because you should. And even then I go, even if he put away this much, like, wow, he's going to have a hard time even buying a house.
Well,
and,
I looked at
and part of that too, I think, Adam, is inheritance. Yeah, a lot of people, and I've had conversations with, I think it was Brooke Day that I interviewed not too long ago, and he said, people are living longer. So we need. My dad used to say, and it's terrible, and he had dementia too, and he said, "You need me to die sooner because it costs money, right? It costs money to keep us alive and all that stuff." And he's not wrong on paper. Obviously, but there's a lot of work to be done there for sure. Let's shift gears a little bit. Sure. I don't want to talk politics forever, but some really great points in there. But you're really involved in inclusivity in the community too, right? And that's interesting conversations, right? I might get this wrong, LGBTQ plus, and I don't know where it's at, but have you had any pushback from that?
Oh, there's always pushback about that in our in this community. That's what some of the postings around the building have been about. That's what some of the online quote unquote death threats have been about. Like, I've had a member of this community call up the headquarters of the United Church. If you don't do something about Reverend Adam, we townfolk here in Sarnia will. And that went through the legal department there, and they called me up, and I was going through my dad's, it was a near-death experience at that point, and the head personnel person at the United Church calls me up, and I'm sitting there like, oh shit, what did I do?
Right. What did I do, or what did I do now?
Yeah. But it's been like, the Sarnia Police has been incredibly helpful in like just in exploring some of that stuff, and also those motion detecting cameras you can buy off Amazon. They've been, when I didn't know who the people were, I had that pointing at my back door, at my house, and for me, it's just people can do whatever people are going to do. Mm-hmm. That's fundamental freedom. It's not up to me to tell people how to live their lives. And people will, that's drag queens. Oh, that's grooming children. No, that's somebody being an entertainer. And every drag queen that I know of, has a different act based on whether it's an adult or a child.
Right.
And go to the bookkeeper. All you hear is all those children's songs we all sang as children. I can't even think of the one that they were just last singing. And reading, children's books that we likely have all read.
Right.
And the children are just fascinated by a drag queen. I didn't really grow up with that, but I became exposed to a lot of stuff when I was studying in Toronto. Like I graduated with the first trans person to be ordained a minister in the United Church. Like we were in almost every class together. And I remember going up to her one day and saying, "You know what? I have a confession. I feel like I've been staring at you all year." And she said, "Oh, I know." And it was at that moment I finally realized, okay, this person understands my experience. Right. Being one of the relatively few black people in a place like Sarnia, like this is the 80s and 90s I'm talking about, not now. There's plenty more folks from all around the world here now. Yeah. But it just gave me a window. It was her self-reflecting back to me, my own assumptions about what I thought the world was and my own judgments on, what I thought was normal and all that kind of stuff. So that led me back to, oh, okay. So, I need a bigger worldview than I have. Mm. And like that began a huge, just a huge transformation about what I think the world is and how we help people. Because, that person is kind and loving and very passionate and a very, very good minister.
Yeah, kind of goes back to what you said earlier in the conversation about each other's opinions. It doesn't have to be mine. I need to understand yours, and so that was kind of an important moment for you, really.
Yeah, it was. And there was another instance where I was with my dad. We went to the old Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto.
Oh yeah.
And we ran into my brother. I think it was I don't even remember what year it was, but it was obviously before Maple Leaf Gardens closed. It must have been the last year or two of it. And we run into my brother after, and we were walking through the streets of Toronto. I couldn't have been more than 13, 14, and we come across these drag queens. I'm walking behind my dad, and I don't even remember what the one said to me, but I was just sitting there like, what the hell's going on?
Right.
And my dad just turns and chuckles, and then we just keep walking to whatever bar or pub that we were going to. And I remember that not because anything happened, but it was probably my first ever exposure.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that also has played a role a little bit. But, I'm of the mindset, just let people be people. And yes, we do have to have some public decor around how we interact and how we...
There has to be some structure.
Yeah. But it doesn't, none of that structure needs to be constricting. Mm-hmm. People are going to talk about whatever they're going to talk about. I don't get to control that. Right. But people also have to realize that if I hear some stuff that I think is inappropriate, part of our freedom of expression is I can respond.
It has to be addressed, right? Yeah. I want to talk to you for hours, so we'll probably have to do it again. But okay, let's get a little more lighthearted now.
Sure.
When you're not playing music, what's Adam do for fun?
Oh, I play squash. I used to instruct. Here's something. So I used to, before the pandemic, I would instruct little kids over at the riding club with a group of other adults. playing squash. Well, two of these guys are about 17 now. So before the pandemic, like before the first lockdown, they would have been, I don't know, 13, 14.
Yeah, okay.
They have doubled in size.
Right.
And about a month ago.
Overnight, right?
Yeah. And I've never had a difficult time, in playing them, beating them.
Yeah.
Well, this other guy, his name's also Adam, 17 years old, doubled in height since the start of the pandemic. We go out on a Monday night, and he just utterly decimates me. So we play a best
Right.
of 5, and it goes up to 11 points it's point a rally, and he beat me 3-0.
How'd that feel?
Well, I'll tell you this. In December, I turned 40,
Right.
and I was feeling every year.
The next day, yeah.
But
I think that's when I called you actually and said, "Hey, will you do the interview?" And you're like, "Yeah." You were
Yes, it was.
You were
yeah.
telling me, "I'm feeling it today," right? When's the student become the teacher, right?
Well, that was when I talked to you, it was I think the day after I had played him again, and I beat him 3-0.
You were going
but
back. You were
let me tell you,
revenge.
after the very first game, so you're playing up to 5 games. After the very first game, I am. I got the heavy breathing going on, gasping for air, and this kid is just like on the court. Oh, I'm just going to keep hitting until
Right.
Adam comes back on the court. And to make it even worse, by the end of game 3, after I won, somebody's like, "Oh, do you want to go on the court and hit?" And he says, "No, I got to go into the other room to work out."
And you're like, I just had 4 workouts in one, right? Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious! It's nice, like it's neat when you're.
You're seeing the growth there, though, obviously.
Yeah. So that's one thing. I love playing video games.
What do you play?
I am especially a huge fan of the game Skyrim.
I haven't heard that one.
The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim.
Oh,
It's one of the
okay.
best-selling games of all time, up in the top 10 or 15.
Oh, really?
And it's you're the Dragonborn, and your job is to stop dragon attacks. But there's also a civil war going on in the little province that you're in, and it's just open world, lots of exploration, lots of mountains that are, and like video games have come to the point right now where. Like if you look at games like Red Dead Redemption, made by Rockstar, the same company that makes Grand Theft Auto, that is one of the most visually stunning games you will ever find. It is basically it's about cowboys, especially outlaw cowboys. But like you go out into the wilderness, the landscapes are unbelievable. When I play Skyrim, there's a place called the College of Winterhold, and it's on this kind of cliff, like 100, 500, 700 feet above the sea. I've had times where I've had my character just jump off that. And when you're like, you get so involved in the game, you feel that falling feeling, if you know what I mean. Like it's the same one that you feel like when you dream about falling. Like it's a weird thing. Yeah. Love that game too. And I play a lot of NHL hockey.
Oh, okay. Do you do any virtual reality? My son's really into that.
No, but I've gone over to
District Beta,
and they've got.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's after a while though you start getting that weird kind of headache feeling.
Dizzy, spinning.
But they have this one really cool game. It's like a zombie game where you have to make sure the zombies don't kill you.
Right.
And I remember the first time I played that, like I was getting eaten, and I just remember like physically trying to like stop them from eating me.
Oh, yeah,
like
weird,
it's a strange thing.
Cool. What's next for Adam Kilner?
What is next for Adam Kilner? Well, Rocky Rivers and us are gonna keep. We're just in the middle of starting to record our band stuff.
Nice.
So that's definitely on the horizon. What else is? Constantly working on this congregation and repositioning itself after the pandemic. We have been probably one of the luckier churches in that. Do we still have people that aren't coming back out of the pandemic? Probably, but we are starting to see levels that are very reminiscent of pre-pandemic levels in person, and then of course you have additional people online. That's another thing. For me, the big thing around the church is like I withheld vacation and sabbatical time. In the United Church, you get about a 3-month sabbatical every 5 years. So we put that off because, again, it's like if you remember when Lloyd Robertson, sorry, not Axworthy, that's the politician, Lloyd Robertson and Peter Mansbridge left the shows they were running for a long time. It was almost like the public became disoriented because that familiar face wasn't there. So around here, it was always about, okay, we'll put that off. Everything in the world around us has changed, so it's important for stability. Even if it's like movies we see, like the U.S. president coming in when the apocalypse is happening.
Yeah, right.
It's that familiar face telling people, here's what's going on. And
comfort, too.
It's comfort, yeah. Even though everything else in the world is changing, this person is still leading us. Yeah. And so that's still a significant thing because as well, like during this pandemic, our congregation amalgamated with Central United Church, and you can see the 2 paintings at the back on the back walls here. Those both came from Central. The one on the right is the first moment that missionaries interacted with the Indigenous community here, which I believe resulted in the creation of St. Clair United Church, which is the one beside the band office at Amshanong. And then the other one was painted by Alison Kaslick, and it's the steeple of the old Central. Nice. So we've had a lot of change around here, and stability has been a key factor in trying to make people feel at home and welcome and affirmed and empowered. So what's the next thing? Who knows? Right. I don't necessarily know, but we always have big decisions coming up at council. We got a few coming up Monday about especially about how do we grow in a smart way, and
makes sense.
And how do we how do we do that in collaboration with Lambton County or the County of Lambton? Right. So there's things like that, and I've never really been one to plan too far in advance.
You're open to a lot, though.
I'm open to a lot. I got into ministry because a minister called up while I was off at university. Oh, Adam, you should go into ministry. And the meeting's on Wednesday. This was a Monday at 2 p.m. So I drove from Waterloo, came down here, and next thing I knew, I was I guess I was an inquirer, right. Some sort of official position. So I'm kind of like think of the old Norse god Odin or Jesus of Nazareth. They're always portrayed as kind of wandering vagabonds.
Right, okay.
And in terms of my planning, that's kind of how I live my life.
Very good. Adam.
Hey, thanks, Dave.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for what you're doing in our community as well. It is appreciated by many, just so you know that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that, Dave. Well, thank you for what you do. You're keeping us all connected.
I try. I try. I'm glad I can do in person now because I was going a little crazy doing it already.
Yeah.
So we'll have to talk some more.
Absolutely.
Adam Kilner, everybody, and I always say click the like and share. The share is really the most important button you can click on, so we can share this great conversation we had with Adam Kilner. Thanks for watching.
Adam Kilner, great conversation there, Adam. Looking forward to the next time we can sit down, maybe coffee next time, and we'll talk about some more things. I really enjoyed having that chat there with Adam, and you can find him on Facebook and follow along with him. And of course, city council meetings, you'll be able to see him there as well. But I really appreciate, Adam, you actually inspired me to do a few things that day that I'd put off, and we had some conversations, some people I needed to talk to, and I handled that. And I want to say thank you because that really came from you and part of the conversation that we had. So you definitely had an impact on me. Thanks for watching, everybody. And don't forget to click the share button around so we can share Adam's story here today. And I'll look forward to the next guest next week right here on the show. But for now, as always, That's all the time I got for you this week. Have a great week and an even better weekend. I will see you next time right here on the show. Bye for now. It's right there. There it is. See you. Bye.